Us, us. What's
Us.
everyone? Welcome back to the Kyokushin Shuffle, the Japan Chronicles. I trust you're all well. What a massive 3 weeks has been. I was just boring Shihan and Sean with it all. We had a great trip to Japan. I had a family holiday. Then we've had lots of family activities in the meantime and settling back into reality, Shihan. I hope you're well. Shihan, Sean, how's it going?
Us, yeah, good. Yeah, no, it's been a busy few weeks since everyone left Japan and that as well, getting back into the normality of life.
Yeah.
Unlike, not like you who managed to escape over to Fiji. That looked great as well. But yeah, the weather's getting better, you know, which is always good because, Japan's a great place in the spring. This is basically the best time of the year.
Yeah, right.
Because once you get into summer, it's just, it's a walking sauna everywhere you go. But
Yeah.
no, all good, all good.
That's
Yep.
good. Well, today we've got a nice segue to a guest that you will be presenting us next week. And then it kind of fell into the topic of the offshoots of Kyokushin Karate, which is an exciting topic because every now and again it's good to recap on things. And it's something that I probably haven't spoken to you about openly with all the, 25,
Mm.
nearly 30 years you've lived in Japan and seen firsthand the transition of multiple high-end caliber Kyokushin students of Oyama that have broken away
Mhm.
into their own style, but have still brought in that full contact karate definition, right? And I think let's have a cool chat about that, and then I guess slowly while you're talking about it, obviously the guest that we have next week on
Yep.
the show is also going to complement today's chat.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's where it came about from because
Yeah.
we're trying to line up a few guests over
Yeah.
the next few months here as well, and would love to get some more Japanese people on talking to some at the moment, but they're here, there, and everywhere. But there's some talks in the works there, and but also, like we had Philip on last year.
Yeah.
There are a lot of foreigners here based in Japan that were drawn to Japan, a lot like Nick and that, others as well that have, started Kyokushin or another type of full contact karate and have eventually found their way over to Japan. So it'd be nice to, give them a bit of the spotlight as well to find out,
Yeah,
what
for
their
sure.
experiences have been. So that I'll talk about the guests we got lined up for next week in a minute, but it just made me think, the influence of Kyokushin Karate in terms of the full contact world in Japan is absolutely immense. It was basically considered the Cobra Kai of karate when
Yeah.
Sosai started out. It was referred to as Jado Karate or Kenka Karate. Maybe you've heard Kenka Karate
Yes.
before. Karate for fighting. Went against all of these philosophies of, there's no first strike in karate. It totally
Right.
turned it on its head, and there was the full contact scene created by what Sosai did, which was the world tournaments, and with the work that he did with the media and creating those
Mm.
videos we've seen now get time and time again, the lead up to the first world tournament, and that really drew a large population of Japanese into Kyokushin Karate. And as I was talking about last time when we reviewed Shihan Yui's session,
Mm.
and that made me think about it as well. He talked about there's different generations of Kyokushin, and what Kyokushin means to each generation is
Yes.
different.
Yes.
He talked about the techniques that was the original Kyokushin
Yes.
Karate of that generation. But
Yeah.
like anything, like culture itself,
Yes.
there's always change. So what you're doing is your original Kyokushin, but naturally, everyone has different thought processes and
Of
different,
course.
ambitions and objectives, and people will leave. It's like leaving a job. You leave somewhere else to do something else to sort of test your potential in
Got
another
it.
way.
Good
That was
example.
a natural evolution for, I guess, full contact karate in Japan. And there's an absolute ton of an ocean of full contact karate styles here now, which I would say, without doing it justice in terms
Yes.
of research, but I would say a good 80 to 90% of them have some lineage or some linkage back to Kyokushin in some way or form. That front line, that, Sosei's first front line, the likes of Soeno, who's Shidokan, right? Or Sato Juku, the first world champion, Sato,
Yeah, big
the
fella.
Jukucho, the head of Sato Juku now. You've got the Ninomiyas, the
Choco.
Enshin Karate.
Yeah.
You've got
Ashihara.
Ishikancho, Seido Kaikan, who was heavily influenced by Ashihara back in the day, so he originally started out in the Ashihara dojo of
Yes.
Kyokushin. And then
Yes.
when Ashihara went off
Yes.
and he started Ashihara Kaikan, because he wanted to focus on Tai Sabaki, all this,
So,
sort of circular movement stuff. Again, Enshin Karate very much influenced by that too, because they were all training together in the
yes.
day. But they all left and they all started their own. But a large part or a core of each of these full contact first line sort of
Yeah.
styles, smelt heavily of Kyokushin, with
Yes.
their own, additions to it. So, it's not a thing that's just happened of late.
Yes.
It's something that, back in the day where people weren't allowed to get along. Once you left, you didn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
People were
I'll
expelled or
I'll jump in on it. That's a great start because when I hear that, and I love a good timeline. I'm a good
Mm,
timeline type of dude in explaining it in sales even. And in a timeline way, 1964 was when
mm,
Kyokushin Karate became what it was, and then there was Oyama Karate before. So 64. So let's
yeah,
let's play a little bit of a timeline here for people to just appreciate how fast things move and at what rate, that we're talking about. So 64 happens, and then I've kind of been given this timeline by other Shihans in just conversation. We moved to the All Japan tournaments were growing and grooming,
mm,
their own style, the Kyokushin way, and Oyama building that front line of pedigree, which then allowed them to tour to certain countries to promote and endorse Kyokushin, full contact karate, the strongest karate as it was defined. We moved to 75, just again in a quick timeline. 75 was the first world tournament. Am I correct in saying that? I
yeah,
hope I am. 1970. So within 64 to 75, within 10 years, this style had got into the millions. It would have
yeah,
progressed into the millions under the one man, under the 10 years of what he did without no internet, no Facebook, no social media, no
mm,
internets, and all this nonsense. He's worked his way into building those three books that we all use as gospel. What is karate? This is karate, advanced karate, right?
yeah,
And in putting that together, as Shihan Cameron Quinn would say, there is 80% of those books and tutelage forms of documents
mm,
have nothing to do with fighting combination sets,
yeah,
have a whole plethora of knowledge towards the gripping, the grabbing, the takedowns, the form of street slash self-defense
mm,
usage of karate. And then we moved to 75 and 79, let's close that gap in a 5-year gap because of,
yep,
of that. And that is the saying of where, that was the first generation of what full contact fighting karate. And I could imagine how it would have blown Japan in the etiquette and the respectful way of what is this barbaric stuff, like
yeah,
the
yeah,
UFC slash MMA
yeah,
came in
yeah,
that late 99, 2000s. And everyone's like, what is this?
yeah,
When I see that, I think of that 75, 79 era and how the foreigner fighters, so the other countries coming in against the Sato, Nakamura,
mm,
big, strong Japanese, brute
mm,
lads in a style of like, what is going on?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And with that, these forefathers, I call them the forefathers of
mm,
the art, build this pedigree of dominance, like,
yep,
just dominance in this style. And we move to the challenge of 83, 87, third and fourth. Now shit gets real. right?
Yeah.
Now we're up to maybe 12 to 15 million students, practitioners of Kyokushin Karate. One,
Yeah.
not, you know, and that's when you start to see Ademir da Costa, Matsui, Andy Hug, Filio, and all these Michael Thompson, Nick da Costa, British, two British fighters in the top 8 under Hanshi O'Neill, one Brazilian, 3, 4 Japanese, and Andy Hug, you know, a European.
Yeah.
Wow, right? Wow, as in what's going on? And then I'm slowly segueing it back to you in a sec. Then we start seeing this Dutch kickboxing. So kickboxing, Dutch kickboxing. Peter Schmidt was in that top pedigree as well. And I love this part of Kyokushin. I love sharing this part of Kyokushin in class, but it's cool that it's popping up now. And then you start going, Dutch Kyokushin, who built that? Who found, like, who was the bones behind that? And again, everyone that's listening, please respect our history on this. It's what we read and what we kind of know off the top of our head. But you start to, you know, get the names of John Blooming, right? Is the first one.
Course.
And then Luke Hollander. And then so the timeline here for everyone, let's play it again. Jacques Sendelescu in Canada was a formidable friend of Oyama. And then John Blooming was, you know, what a monster of a man in respect of fighting and his pedigree.
And then you have, you know, the likes of Howard Collins and you know, Shihan and that you know,
to Sweden, and
the same with
Ryan Fitkin, who develops a bloke called Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're in that mid 80s now, just to kind of work forward here. And that's when from the historical side of things that I see is like, okay, how the likes of Azuma, the likes of how Saito, Ashihara, Enshin, Kudo, these players now are kind of in their peak or just out of their peak of full contact karate, 40 years of age, and going, okay, what do we do here? Could you imagine the conversations that these lads would have had to have had with Sosai? And even Sam Greco shares it when he was like, listen, I'm out of the Kyokushin in 92 in Singapore, 92. He's like, listen, Sato's up and about. There's a financial means to this. We're starting to realize that we can run dojos. We can have a profession in this.
Yeah, we can do it full time. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which was my definition of Dutch kickboxing and how professionalism of K1 opened up. And then Ishii was a former Kyokushin student as well. And just this monstrous, I guess, listeners, take yourself through this era of the 80s, mid 80s, of the dominance of how the movie Karate Kid comes out. Bruce Lee has passed away, but his movies have blown up. Dojos, karate schools are now challenging each other. And Oyama's bios of the actor Chiba, Sonny Chiba, plays Oyama in a storytelling of how he would go into dojos prior to the 80s to show the dominance of what his art was and is.
Yeah, the old dojo yaburi, it's called, where you go
What's it called?
Dojo yaburi. So dojo, yaburi means to tear or rip. So basically to go into non-Kyokushin dojos and rip them a new one if they were in the same neighborhood. Basically,
So I'll segue in a sec. So then all this adds up to then what Oyama did himself, trying to take over. Again, I don't know the right word of, being dominant to Shotokan and Gojuru. And all respect to Shotokan and Gojuru listeners, I hope you understand what I mean, because you got to listen to the way Oyama was like, no, this is where we're heading. So he does that, but then he grooms, as I say, these minions, and you've used that word, the minions of then, well, Sosai, you did it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You broke off to a degree of Shotokan, Goju, Judo. You created your style. And now I just could imagine, and I'm letting everyone kind of feel the meetings that would have been had in these office of these legends now, but how they foresee the future of what full contact karate was going to be.
Yeah, well, it would have been a tough conversation because, and it was something that Sourcei would have had to have done when he was creating the Oyama dojo and later, Kyokushin Kaikan. He originally, was training in Goju Ryu. He was, he was also doing judo as well and things like that. And I mean, he would have had to have broken ties with people as well. And I'm sure he did it in a polite way, he didn't just tell them to go and jump, or whatever.
Yeah.
It was done with respect, but I'm sure that his former teachers were just as pissed off as he would have been after building up such a strong practitioner or front line for them to then go off and do their own thing. But it's just natural evolution, isn't it?
Right.
And it's the same in business, it's the same everything. It hurts when you're at the top, when these capable people are leaving you. But yeah, I think you put it well when you say that, well, if you can do it, and let's remember, he created a template,
Yes.
full contact karate now. That's Sorsai and the people around him that helped him run the ship. Some remain loyal and still do to this day. The Gorda Shihans of the world, etc., are still loyal to Kyokushin. The Isobe Shihans in Brazil, they're still very, very loyal. Those, Howard Collins Shihan is now with Shin Kyokushin.
Yep.
He's very loyal to that. So some have chosen to stay. And I mean, you just have to look at the first 10 people to complete the 100
100.
man. You know,
Western
John Jarvis from New Zealand, who then,
Jarvis.
he went on to
Wow.
go to Okinawa Goju Ryu. He
Okay.
he done his day in Kyokushin and said, no, I want to focus on something else. Everyone has their time and their place. And for the longest time, if you weren't Kyokushin, then, you know, you didn't exist in Japan. It
Yeah.
was a
Right.
it was, a bit of a kick in the guts maybe for Sorsai, but now you sort of, turn the clock forward now, and those that were brave enough to leave and to
Yes.
do these things
Yes.
have influenced others that, I mean, for example, yeah, let's take Ishikancho from Seido Kaikan K1, right?
Yes.
He was with Ashihara,
Okay.
and when Ashihara decided to formally leave Kyokushin Kaikan and establish Ashihara Kaikan, Ishikancho said, well, no, this is my chance to form something I want to do, which is a little bit different to you.
Yes.
And he did it respectively. And he started basically a year after Ashihara Shihan left Kyokushin Kaikan. Ishikancho began, or it could have even been at the same time, and I have to look at the dates again. But
Sure.
he established Seido Kaikan,
Wow.
and all he did was he simplified a lot of things. He took out a lot of things from what he'd learned in Kyokushin. There's not a heavy emphasis on the traditional kata.
Okay. Yep.
So he created more kumite focused
Yes.
kata.
Yes.
He simplified the syllabus so that was purely focused on full contact fighting
Right.
and, the training around that. And from there, he then developed K1 because he had that freedom of
Wow.
networking, with a lot of people overseas, and he'd seen the benefits of Dutch kickboxing, so on and so forth. He thought, well, hey, I can bring this to Japan.
Mm.
After Sorsei passed, I mean, we can interview Nick again and
Mm.
talk about that. But when Nick first started out, I remember when he first started out in K1 and Filio as well.
Yeah.
They were under the
Ichigeki.
the Ichigeki stable.
Matsui.
Because Matsui had decided that, well, hey, that's a good amount of cash if you're managing fighters. They can take their cut, the fighters can get paid as well. Let's bring some professional fighting into it because, people weren't getting paid to go into tournaments in Kyokushin, etc., and so forth. So,
Yeah.
and that was setting the platform for a more fully fledged, full contact world we see now in Japan. We've got the traditional, if you want to call it traditional, you got the traditional Kyokushin tournaments of all
Yes.
the factions
Yes.
because they have that template that they learned from
Came through. Yeah.
from their from their instructors from the one organization when it was one. They learned how to run, set
Yes.
up tournaments. So
Yes.
something they can do in their sleep. Those that then broke away from Kyokushin said, well, if they can do it, so can we. We'll
Yeah.
do it on a smaller scale. But, then people started to work together and they said, well, we're a full contact style. You're a full contact style. We share a common lineage. Well, why don't we combine our efforts so we get more fighters into different,
Sure.
tournaments instead of doing our own smaller ones? And that now you have the likes of the JFKO, which is
Yeah.
the Japan Full Contact Karate Organization.
Yep.
And that was established, I think, in 2013. So it's still only been going 11 years. But now, and that was for a lot of these breakaways and then the resulting breakaways from the breakaways,
Yeah.
because now you have those people that originally went with Daido Jiku or Kudo, Azumas,
Yeah.
or people that went Seido Kaikan, and then there was a major split from that as well.
Yeah.
Seishinkai, it's called. A few of the front line broke away from
Right.
Ishikan. Okay, but all of them now come together in this JFKO organized
Banner.
tournament
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah.
And then people that broke away from them that run independent full contact dojos because they want to run their own small dojo full time.
Right.
Or Shihan had a lieutenant by the name of Sedizawa. Great. Oh, and I'll try and get him on actually.
Sure.
Wonderful human being. Absolute wonderful human being. And he was an Uchideshi and so on and so forth. He broke away within Shizuoka and created his own full contact school.
Right.
And, and that was recent. That was like in the last 10
Okay.
or so years.
Yeah.
So, it's continuing. But now they've got more options of bigger organizations so that they can actually put their fighters in rather than just run their own local sort of
Yes.
tournament.
Yes.
And the likes of the one thing I will say about Shin Kyokushin and also Zen Kyokushin
Yes.
as well, because Hasegawa Soshi allows it. This JFKO
Yes.
organization, both Shin Kyokushin and Zen Kyokushin put fighters in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
We coincidentally, you bringing this up, have a
Yeah.
tournament here, the South Pacific.
That's right. For the
August.
weight worlds next year in May, yeah.
Yeah. And Shin Kyokushin have honors in running it first.
Yep.
And they're doing a great job in promoting it. And it's a plug to everyone here in Australia about the South Pacific coming up in August. And it's going to be creme de la creme. And in saying that, yeah, it gives the opportunity for May next year. 5 male fighters, 5 female fighters will be sponsored like the old days to a degree. Your flights, I'm not sure accommodation, either way, you'll take whatever you get. To compete against the best in the first, is it now recognized as the first JFKO
world tournament? Weight division too.
World weight division, 5 and 5. Yeah, right. So not to we might bring that up in a couple of weeks' time about that and try and I might get one of the Shin Kyokushin organizers, Shihan David Jacobs. I've asked these people, for listeners here in Australia, I've asked these people to come on multiple times and always choose that it's available, but not everyone wants to, or again, either way. Hey, that is look how that circles.
Come around.
It comes back and then it goes whoop, and then it goes into like another circle, and then you continue to draw these. Like I'm trying to think of the diagram where some put like a 3, the infinity 1, 2, 3, and then Kyokushin's in the middle, but then it expands into all these beautiful things. And I remember Shihan Takuma saying to me, he was here in Australia one time for a camp and we were touching base. And I said, happy to go back, and see the kids next time. And he goes, oh no, I have another tournament to help run. And I said, oh, what is it? And it was, excuse my, All Japan kids and teens. I said, oh wow, how many participate? 1,000. I'm like, what's that? 1,000? And he was like, and he was trying to interpret it. And I was like, okay, Shihan Billy, is this for real? And he goes, yeah, 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 yeah. And I said, he goes, but out of that 1,000, no word of a lie, I'm missing the number a little bit, but not far off. I think he said 70 different styles of karate in the tournament. 70.
Yep.
Now, of the 1,000, there was Kyokushin, but all these other different kanjis, names and styles, but under the Kyokushin pedigree.
Oh yeah, I mean there's a ton now. There's
Jeez.
so I've got junior championships,
Yes.
all of those as well. You've got, there's I'm just trying to remember some names off the top of my head. You've got the likes of Karate Do Mac. There's another one called Full Contact Karate School. So you've got these sort of sort of new generation names.
Yeah.
But some have, some might just give their style their own name. So it could be, a bit like when Hajime Kazumi, when he started his, it was Kazumi Dojo, So some people don't give themselves this flash style name.
Yeah.
They just use their own name and they put that, and then they put dojo at the end of it. There's a guy from the Matsui faction who was an up and coming fighter, Takahashi, right?
Yeah.
And so he broke away after the last World Tournament.
Yeah,
and
he won it.
His now is Takahashi Dojo.
Yeah.
And that's what he calls himself, There's Nochi Dojo as well. There's all of these ones which are kind of the grandchildren of the original, but like you say, they all come together and there's no political sort of power plays or anything like that. It's like, well, we respect that everyone has their own thing to do.
Yeah.
All right, let's make the most of that and get as many people to a tournament as possible.
And keep in mind, listeners, and I'm saying it because I'm comprehending it as well. There is a financial means to this. Like there is a livelihood for the top ex-world champion of a Matsui group breaking off and financially now benefiting and taking the risk of him running his own name and brand and creating his own brand and not having to, again, have a contribution of financial means back to the Matsui, because we all get it. There's grading fees, there's this fee, there's that fee, there's membership fee, there's insurances, and there's a whole multiple of things that have to make the world work and coincide. But then those that break off can go, hey, I've done the sums. For me to do this now full time and professionally and the way I do it without having to answer to anyone, and that is the be all end all of martial arts, BJJ Brazilian way. You've got to, if you're under that federation, you've got to follow their rules and their guidelines and their principles. If you run your own race, well, then be aware of what comes with that.
Exactly.
Yamas also had to create this beast, and he knew, imagine the shit that would have gone down, phone calls that he would have had of I call it the nomads, or the like the bikies that have gone the wrong way, and the chapters the chapters of the bikie gangs that all of a sudden have split off and created their own bikie gang. And he's like, shit, he's a student of mine, and he's doing what? Oh man, great phone call, guys, appreciate it. Way to hold the line. and I try to, again, that's my sales way of talking and giving people another analogy or concept of going, oh man, yeah, you're right. And I call it I use that in the dojo. I go, it's a chapter. Here's a chapter of someone, I'm fortunate. I have my dojo in Melbourne, but I have many of the other black belts running that for me. I can't get to it.
Right.
And then I have one locally a kilometer around the corner. That's me only. So I take the risk of shit. That's just me. And then I've got two other students that have got their own dojos in, but they want to use our name. And I'm like, use the name. That's fine. However, that is a risk to me now. I can't keep tabs of what you're doing and who you're doing. And so the kids and teens and adults that you're teaching, we need to keep a very, very, very close eye on them, that they don't ruin the branding of, and that's just me doing a semi part-time thing. let alone Sosai, who had 15
But
million
it just shows
people
the
all
immense,
around the world.
yeah, it's just the enigma, the influence, the aura of the man, and how he was able to keep everyone together as one. But I think, while there were some rocky times after his death, that now people have come to realize that mutual respect is one value that everyone should hold dearly. And I mean, you would have witnessed this
Yeah.
when you were in Japan this time. At that tournament, at that unified tournament, you had the Zen Kyokushin, you had the Dengo Kai, you had other independent Kyokushin dojos putting in fighters, but then you had other karate, like that guy you came up against. He runs his own full contact
Right.
style, which has its origins or its lineage to Kyokushin, but he's his own independent dojo, and they are able to come into Kyokushin run dojos tournaments now and win them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like back in the day when Sosai wanted to keep the immensity or the power of Kyokushin as one, tournaments were sort of running away to make sure that Kyokushin came out on top.
Of
I
course.
mean, this is probably easier to understand if imagine foreigners coming to Japan to a Japanese tournament. Basically, you got to knock out the Japanese opponent to go through or to absolute dominate the fight from start to finish because the cards are sort of against you when you've got 4 Japanese judges, so
Yeah.
I mean, we won't go into that too much,
No.
but now I can see different styles coming into different full contact tournaments, and it's the best will win. It's not
Yeah.
because it's from that dojo or it's from this style. It's now becoming more and more of a sort of a what's the word? There's a lot more equality in terms of your opportunity to win, no matter which style
Right.
you're from.
It's
So
like an even playing field to a
yeah,
degree.
an even playing field, level playing field,
Yeah.
more and more now. And because of the influence of the likes of this JFKO, they all got together and said, well, if we're going to allow all of these full contact organizations to participate,
Yeah.
everyone must have an equal opportunity to win.
Hey,
And
Shihan, that's
that,
awesome.
I mean, that goes back to this tournament you're talking about now, the qualifying tournament, the South Pacific one,
Yes.
right? I know for a fact, well, I hope I'm still correct in saying that Moken Z, the Masoyama Kyokushin New Zealand organization that I belong to, um, will be sending fighters to the South Pacific tournament
Absolutely.
with the hope that
Yeah.
someone qualifies for the Worlds,
Right.
which means it's an equal level
Yep.
playing, sort of playing field there. Everyone has a chance,
Yeah.
even though it is being managed by Shin Kyokushin, and I know they're going to put in some great fighters.
Yeah.
Everyone has the same opportunity to qualify, which is something unheard of in the past.
Yeah. True.
But now, these things, and it's sort of trickling into Japan, that mindset. It's not us against them or them against
Yeah.
us, that mentality anymore. It's like the best person will win, and so it's a great development to see in Japan. So it means there's a lot more tournaments, but with people, all these different full contact dojos getting together, putting their resources together for a bigger, better run, show
Yeah.
for the
Sure.
spectators as well. That people are now have more opportunity to enjoy a wider range, and the fighters have more opportunities throughout the year to fight in different large tournaments, which is a great development.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, that's awesome insight. Really, really cool. Because now, in the next 5 or so minutes, your guest for
Yep.
next week, be great to just give us a bit of a segue, towards the guest. And because there's a couple of things running through my head now, which is I look forward to having a chat about all those things that he has done and does.
Yeah.
And then I think after this chat with everyone listening and understanding, okay, this is good knowledge and good history to a degree and what's happening and what's moving forward. I've always wanted to talk about, again, I'm not sure what the right topic is called, just for argument's sake.
Yeah.
Like we've named this the offshoots of Kyokushin, full
Yeah.
contact karate, but then
Yeah.
obviously what um the other martial arts styles within Kyokushin are now going to different means of fighting. So fighting
Right.
meaning, you know, our good pal Terry Burkett, Shihan Terry Burkett in the UK, he in Wales, he always brings up that not that way of, hey, it's good to have Kyokushin, but are you really doing Kyokushin that is for fighting or for tournament fighting, right? And
Yeah.
what I'm alluding to is how these other styles like Ashihara, Enshin grab the gi, Sato grab the back into a grapple extent of tight clinching and allowing it.
Yeah.
I love that conversation. And again, with everyone listening, it's, you know, you've done it for 30 plus years. I'm 25 plus, of where you start going, okay, what, you know, I was talking to you about this topic earlier. Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Why are we doing what we're doing?
Yeah.
What is it? Where is it heading? And the word that pops up in my head is Shihan Cameron Quinn saying that the evolution of Kyokushin was getting to a phase in that midnight into that 90s period before Sosai passed away. And you will know this word, which is the Shin Soseiki, which is
Yeah.
the genesis of what
Genesis. Yeah.
Kyokushin is
Yeah.
going to be moving forward before he
Yep.
passed away, not knowing obviously he would pass at 70 and thinking he may have had the next 10 years ahead, which would have moved it into that MMA. So another topic in for another day, but I'm just keeping the momentum of us thinking and keeping in mind the way these offshoots have happened, the way the growth of Kyokushin continues to trickle into other martial arts styles of fighting. I'm holding my hands as a striker here, but why do we do kake? Why do we do all these movements of grapple and hikate and grabbing? And really want to go into that, because I'm going into that world more and more. The more I teach, the more I explore as well.
Great. Yeah, well, it's a journey, isn't it? And, you know, it's a never-ending sort of journey into what you learn, or how you dissect everything, how you break everything down. And, you know, we've talked about the full contact scene in Japan a little bit today, that leads me to the guest I'm going to get on. Robert Doust. He's a Canadian, French Canadian. So he's from Montreal. I had the pleasure of first meeting him at an international Budo seminar that I used to interpret at for many years. And he came along to that. And when he came along, he was wearing a Kudo, I think it was either Kudo or Daido Juku Dogi at the time. I think the first time I met him, I could be wrong. I'll ask him next week when I meet him. But so he came up, introduced himself. But he originally started in Kyokushin in Canada, right? He's great mates with Nick.
Wow.
He's in Tokyo. He's a personal trainer. He runs his own karate dojo now as well. He's for a long time been a fitness instructor at the America Club and he does his own personal trainings for different people and that. But I'll let him explain that when we interview him.
That's cool.
His journey has been, he started out in Kyokushin. He then went to Daido Juku, so Azuma Jukucho, or, you know, the Azuma Shihan of the Kyokushin world, if you know your history. Before he passed, I had the pleasure of meeting him once, probably about 14 years ago now. He got me absolutely tanked on whiskey, made me drink until I couldn't stand. And that's a story for another day. But so Robert did Daido Juku for the longest time, or Kudo. So there's two different names for it, but it's the same style. But then he got into his sort of history and development of karate, and he became, and I won't speak too much on his behalf, but from where I stand, I could see him wanting to expand his journey more.
Nice.
And so he really started to look at the origins of karate, and he went to Okinawa and he started to really do a lot of research and a lot of training in old school karate from Okinawa, right? And eventually what that's led to is him creating his own dojo. And I won't call it a style. He does have a name for it. But he's not looking for world domination. He's just given his karate school a name, so we can ask why and the meanings behind.
That'd be great.
But it's blending, from what I've seen and what I've heard from him briefly, is it's blending his years of experience and exposure to Kyokushin, to Daidojiku, to Okinawa,
Yeah.
to the karate of Okinawa,
Yeah.
and he's bringing it all together. So he, and that's it's basically what Sosei did with
That
Kyokushin.
way.
It's basically what all these other
Yeah.
full contact karate schools in or styles in Japan have done. They've have their base, but they've wanted to add more to it, or they've wanted to
Cool.
venture out and incorporate different things they think are good. And I mean, that's while Sorsei wasn't around long enough to take it to that next stage, he's obviously planted that seed in so
Yes.
many people's heads, either directly or indirectly,
Yes.
that it has come to fruition in a way.
Yes.
Um, and people are doing that. So next week will be an opportunity to see
Great.
how those influences have led to what Robert's doing now. So
That is
doing it in Japan,
that
he's got
is
kids,
that
he's
is
got
going to,
adults.
yeah.
So it'll be really good chat. Yeah.
Great job in getting that locked in. We locked it in. Our calendars are ready, listeners, and we will continue on our merry way. And that's the segue for today. We found the topic around, hey, let's just build this up a little bit more and get conversation. So love to have your inputs, your comments, in sharing openly, which I shared with Shihan and Sean earlier. I've always had a vision for this podcast, this channel to grow, to mature, to be something spectacular and amazing.
Mm.
Now that things have slowed down a little bit at my end, I've got to put some time and energy behind it. And thanks to Shihan Sean for his input and contribution, and more so his time and energy, because there are patches where I'd love to blow this thing up and go to another level. And I
Right.
hope I can to a degree, but it's thanks to the listeners and those that write comments and those that engage. And I didn't push that for 2 or 3 years because I was just on my merry way about it. But there seems to be a tap on the shoulder again of push, let's go here. Let's you've had your fun and games, Pat. You've trained your guts out. And now what other contribution can you give to the Kyokushin fraternity and full contact fraternity now and karate? And with Sean's knowledge and expertise, as we can see, I'm not going to get that. I have to use that privilege and really respect that. So Shihan Sean, we appreciate your time again. We look forward to next week.
Yeah, next week's going to be a good one.
Wait for that chat. It's going to be great, and we'll go from there. Have a great day.
Excellent.
Keep training hard, everyone. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. Big us, everyone. Big us.
Us.
Thanks heaps.